Good evening, good evening, good evening, ladies. I hope you are all well and that you've had a lovely day so far. So I'm just going to do this recording and we're going to do it all about kind of like navigating a healing crisis. So if you need a little bit longer during the journaling prompts, then just push pause on whatever device you're listening to and continue journaling. So have your journal handy, your notebook handy, whatever it is you're wanting. If you want to do this on your laptop and type instead of writing, you can do that. If you're not going through a healing crisis right now, then just think of kind of like maybe a recent one you've had, and kind of like anything in, with regards to that. We're going to start quite specific. We're going to go general, and then we're going to go into specifics again. All right. So what you're going to want to do is maybe leave a couple of pages open for journaling. And then when I get there, I'll tell you, but then you just want to create like a kind of like that size, maybe if it's over 2 pages in a journal where you're going to have 5 columns, just so that you can link certain things together as we kind of like note them down, jot them down. Anyway, it'll start making sense in a little while as when we get into it. All right, so let's just start off by sitting nice and comfortably. Feel that you're able to take a couple of smooth, slow, steady breaths. So you're noticing the breath as it's flowing in. And you're noticing the breath as it's flowing out. And take a moment to think of 3 things you're grateful for. That's it. And then just tap into your being and noticing that when a health issue arises, that often it dispels as a physical, kind of like with physical symptoms. But before that, it has entered into kind of like our orbit as an emotional or a mental imbalance. And even kind of like before that, often a spiritual imbalance. So just noticing that often when it's physical, there are other layers to it. We're just going to see if we can maybe unpack some of those layers this evening without having to kind of like address them, just observing them, noticing what arises. Maybe something will, maybe something won't. And just really get present with yourself. You might even want to feel that it's a time where you want to be supported by your ancestors, and maybe as you write and journal, maybe they're going to just drop little pearls of wisdoms or inspiration or thought or ideas or phrases or words into your journaling practice. Just imagine them standing behind you, supporting you. Lovely. Now, if you have or are navigating a specific healing crisis right now, just bring that to the forefront. And the first question that I'm going to ask you is, why this? And you're just going to take 2 minutes and you're going to journal and write whatever comes up with when you're asked, why this? All right, and you can go. Timers. And if you're needing an extra minute or time, you can just pause. Otherwise, you can answer the next question, which is, why now? And again, when you ask yourself, like, why this? Why now? And just write. I'll give us 2 minutes again, and we're just writing, writing, writing. If nothing comes to mind, just sit there and ask yourself, why now? Why now? Why now? Why now? Why now? Why now? And then the last question for this part, for this kind of like 2-minute journaling, is why me? So we've done like, why this? Why now? Why me? Everyone in the universe, why am I being challenged, handed on this illness, this healing crisis? Why me? And just write. Don't judge yourself with what is coming out. Don't feel that you need to kind of edit it in any way. It might be the strangest combination of words, sentences, of feelings. Just let it be. Just allow that stream of consciousness to flow. Why this? Why now? Why me? Why me? All right, nice. Great. All right. So maybe that is just like brought a few things up. We're just going to stay in this space. And then I just want you to list down, and this, you can do this in that first column that I was talking about. But what I want to get into now is kind of like just how we can navigate a healing crisis, and what kind of like fail-proof tools and tips we can slowly start to put in place so that we have something we can orient and navigate ourselves around. So maybe in that first column is just writing a list of kind of like particular illnesses or things that happen to you or in your family even that arise. So for example, like with me, it's always been like a lot of menstrual pain and headaches, migraines. I suffer from heat stroke regularly. I've had thyroid issue. So you're just going to list what is apparent to you. If you want to broaden this and expand it into the rest of your family, for your kids and your partner, you can do that as well. Just depends on how much time you have. You might just want to push pause then. But literally you just want to take a minute to list your illnesses. or issues that arise. And again, you can always add on to this as things comes up over the week, the weekend. In the next column next to that is kind of like, what pain or discomfort do I experience during these episodes? So again, like, so for me, if it's like my menstrual issues, it's immense like cramps, lower back pain, terrible headaches. If I get migraines, there's a lot of vomiting that goes on. With the heat stroke, there's that feeling of like hot and cold, and again, intense headaches. There's also a sense of irritation and frustration. So again, just next to each appropriate one, list kind of like the pain or the discomfort that you notice with each of those illnesses, issues, challenges that came up. Like when it was my thyroid, it was like a lot of heart racing, and not being able to sleep nicely or fully properly at night. So you just really want to make a list of the discomfort that you note. You can go as detailed or as general as you want. I might even notice that kind of like at certain times, maybe there's like, maybe you're more constipated or you tend towards diarrhea. That's usually a big one as well with the stool. Maybe there's like a lot of bloating or gas. Maybe there's a sense of like heaviness within. All right. So again, if you need to pause. If you're ready to go on in the next column alongside that. Can you tell when the pain is about to set in? Kind of like, what are the signs or the symptoms, like the build up to it? So again, it might kind of like be tender breasts, or it might be irritability, or it might be a feeling of immense pressure behind the eyes, or it might feel like a sense of itchiness, or it might be kind of like just noting kind of what are the telltale signs that you're about to head into that. Might be like scratchy throats, or mucus on the tongue, or a snotty nose, or sore ears. Just kind of like, again, listing those. All right, and again, if you need to push pause, go ahead, push pause. And otherwise go into the next column, and then there just write down kind of like what you can do to make it less stressful. So what can you do to make it less stressful in that period, like so that you don't go from kind of like column C to column B, which is then kind of like what column A is all about. So how can you make it less stressful on the body for you to move from kind of like when the signs and symptoms are just kind of just there in the periphery to when like there is that discomfort within the body. And it might be things like kind of like maybe it is like, if it's the menstrual stuff, I'm just going to go with that because that's one of the things I do. It might just be like kind of like less, I love the gecko across my wall, kind of like less sugar, more water, more warm water, slowing down, more kind of like slow walks. So what kind of things do you know that already help you with it? It might be maybe, having more protein in your diet, maybe more fats in your diet. It might be having like that green smoothie or taking that green smoothie out. Maybe it's having more warm, mushy foods or more spicy foods. Kind of like you'll know what kind of like you need to do to make it less stressful. If it's like heat stroke, it will be like more cooling stuff. So we're just going to write a list there with regards to like what you can do to make it less stressful kind of like before that episode is. And it might hit in, stick in, it might, it might kick in, it might not, but just knowing kind of like the things that you could do. It might be like how you change your yoga practice or your meditation practice. It might mean that you need to do more like legs up the wall or being in a child pose or a reclined cobbler. We know that there's certain things that can help alleviate and the pressure or pain. All right, if you need to push pause, go ahead, push pause. Otherwise, in the final column, and you can kind of like break this column into two again. It's kind of like if the shit hits the fan, if the worst happens, what are the things you can do? And have like kind of like the allopathic option, kind of like the medication you would take, if it's the Ponstan, if it's certain kind of like thyroid medication, if it is cortisone, if it is, like if the shit hits the fan, what kind of like allopathic meds do you know that you need to take? Put that in one kind of like on one side so that it is there. And in the other side, like more the holistic. So do you know of, maybe it's tissue salts that you should, that helps. Maybe it is I'm just trying to think. Whatever the story is, you get the idea. Maybe it's bringing that hot water bottle out. Maybe it is doing a yoga nidra. Maybe it's I know that kind of like if I've vomited, then it feels very comfortable if I do like gargling with some warm water and tea tree just to get that taste out. So kind of like, when the shit hits the fan, what are kind of like the meds that you need to use, and what are kind of like the more natural alternatives that can support in that phase as well. Might be like, like a cold shower or a cooler bath. I know that if I get a migraine, it is intense. I've got these migraine bombs that I take, but they take about 20 minutes to kick in. Luckily, I haven't had to take one for a while. But I know that Craig has to hold me tight. He has to hold my head, and I have to be completely still, because if all I want to do is move, and that is the worst for me. So he already knows that if it kicks in, he has to be there for me, and he literally has to hold me as if I'm in a straitjacket and prevent me from moving, because that's the only thing that will allow kind of that immense intense pain to subside. So again, kind of like in that column, breaking it into what are kind of like meds you kind of need to be there for backup, and what are kind of like holistic or alternative or natural or human touch options that are available to you. And hopefully that column is a lot longer. There are a lot more options in there than the other one. All right, I'll give us another moment or two to write those down. And then you can move into like a new page when you're ready. And kind of like this is also kind of like just in general, you might find that it comes up as like, what other practices or habits would it be good to have? So for example, it might be like having meals prepared, maybe to have an easy checklist around available for other people. Maybe it might be to have backup kind of like support structures for people to do certain things, to collect kids, to drop them off, whatever it is. So what other practices or habits would it be good to have? And just list those down. And then the next question you can ask yourself is kind of like, what do your meals look like in this kind of like when you're going through a healing crisis? You know, are they like, do they need to be like Vata balancing, warm and mushy? Does it need to be quick and easy where you're just throwing the stuff in like an instant pot or a rice cooker so that you've kind of like you've got your lentils, you've got your grains, your rice and your veggies, and it's easy, it's quick, it's done in half an hour, and it can feed the whole family. Like simple, no fuss foods. Just kind of like, what would healthy meal options look like in that phase? And then kind of like what needs to be in place for that to happen. You know, do you need to have the rice and lentils as a staple in your pantry? Do you need to have chopped up veggies in your fridge already? Does someone in the family need to know how to turn on a rice cooker or an instant pot? Is there a fail-proof recipe that someone else you can give to someone else that they can do and cook for you? Like what needs to be in place for your meals to happen? Have you got a little bit of a menu that works for you? All right, and just jot that down. All right. Right, so this was kind of like just the start of journaling with regards to like how to navigate a healing crisis. What I think would be really helpful is to find your accountability buddy and just message them kind of like 3 things that you note would be helpful for you to have prepared or have in place should or does a healing crisis arise. And then share that with each other. You might get tips from your accountability buddy, and you might want to swap or change something, or maybe add something to your list that you hadn't thought of. And then what we're going to do is on our call on Monday is everyone can bring their one tip or one favorite tip that they're going to kind of like look at implementing to our call for our closure call on Monday. All right, guys, that is it for me for journaling tonight. It was a good little half an hour session. I hope you got value out of that. I hope you got some insight out of that. I know I always do when I do this. It might be really nice to schedule this one in, to maybe do it, maybe not seasonally, maybe just 2 or 3 times a year, maybe seasonally to begin with, but then kind of like once this has become a little bit of a practice, maybe we only need to do it twice a year. But at the change of seasons, there are different, different illnesses or issues arise often. So it might just be good to get that in the calendar now, and we can maybe just put this in for, a listen to again in a couple of months' time. All right, sending you lots of love. Have a beautiful day.